The only potential downside of eating sweet potatoes is if you eat too much, you could get a yellow nose. It's called carotenemia. It's a common harmless condition due to elevated levels of beta-carotene in the blood. First noticed a century ago when carrots were introduced into infant diets. It's treated mostly by just reassuring parents that it's harmless, but if you don't want your child's nose to be yellow, you can decrease their beta-carotene intake. In a few months it'll be gone. But color is what we're looking for. When picking out varieties at the supermarket, the intensity of the yellow or orange flesh color of the sweet potato is directly correlated to its nutritional content, so the more intense, the better. Though if you really want intensity, sweet potato varieties range not only from white to yellow and orange, but to pink and very to deep purple, the natural pigments of which may have special anti-cancer effects of their own. What's the best way to cook sweet potatoes? Boiling may actually best retain the antioxidant power of sweet potatoes compared to roasting and steaming. If you compare baking to boiling, microscopically, boiling helps thin out the cell walls and gelatinize the starch, which may enhance the bioavailability of nutrients, while at the same time the glycemic index of boiled sweet potatoes was found to be only about half that of baking or roasting, so boiled gives one less of a blood sugar spike. Make sure to keep the skin on, though. The peel of a sweet potato has nearly 10 times the antioxidant power as the flesh, an antioxidant capacity comparable to that of blueberries, though it really takes a hit when baked, wiping out over 2/3, whereas microwaving or boiling was comparatively much gentler. The same with the rest of the sweet potato. Baking can cause an 80% drop in vitamin A levels, twice as much as boiling, so from a nutritional standpoint, boiling rather than baking can be recommended for sweet potato cooking. Boiling may be best, but sweet potatoes are so incredibly healthy, the best way to prepare them is whichever way will get you to eat the most of them, with the exception of deep frying, which can lead to the formation of acrylamide, a potential human carcinogen. You may remember back in Volume 2, I compared the effects of different cooking methods on the phytonutrients in broccoli. Well, last year, food scientists outdid themselves. They looked at 20 different vegetables, 6 different cooking methods, and then looked at 3 separate measures of antioxidant activity. That's over 300 separate experiments to figure out what's the best way to cook our vegetables. First, though, let's figure out the worst. In terms of loss of antioxidant content, baking, boiling, frying, George Foreman, nuking, or pressure cooking, the worst is boiling. What's the second worst? The pressure cooking. When we use these wet cooking methods, some of the nutrition is lost into the cooking water. Maybe less than you think, though. Averaged over those 20 vegetables, boiling only removes about 14% of the antioxidants. So if you really like boiled broccoli, fine, just eat 1 more floret. 7 florets of boiled broccoli has all the antioxidant power of 6 florets of raw broccoli. So the best way to eat your veggies is really whichever way will get you to eat the most of them, with the exception of frying, which just adds way too many empty calories. What's the gentlest cooking method, though? Out of these remaining 4, which preserves antioxidants the best? It was the microwave, preserving 97.3% of the antioxidants. But that's on average across 20 vegetables. There was one vegetable whose antioxidants get clobbered no matter how you cook it, up to 75% of the antioxidant power gone. Which is the one vegetable really best to eat raw? Artichoke hearts, asparagus, beets, broad beans, broccoli? Hope we don't have to eat raw Brussels sprouts. Cauliflower, carrots, celery, eggplant, garlic, green beans, leeks, corn on the cob, onions, peas, bell pepper, spinach, Swiss chard, or zucchini. The most vulnerable vegetable is bell peppers. Do try to eat those raw. On the other hand, there were 3 vegetables that weren't affected by cooking at all. You could even boil them and lose no antioxidants. Can you guess at least one of the 3? The 3 were artichokes, beets, and onions. Boil away. Asparagus actually gets honorable mention here, unaffected by all but frying, so you can boil asparagus too. Final question, and perhaps most interesting. There are 2 vegetables that, no matter what you do to them, they increase in antioxidant value. They become healthier. Which 2 are they? First, the honorable mention, green beans. With the exception of boiling and pressure cooking, they actually increase in antioxidant power when you cook them. So microwave green beans are actually healthier than raw green beans. But which 2 vegetables always increase in value, no matter how you cook them? Carrots and celery. So when you make a nice vegetable soup, we're actually boosting the nutrition. Beans, chickpeas, split peas, and lentils are packed with nutrients and play a role in the prevention of chronic disease. But most can't be eaten raw. Boiling is the most common cooking method, which is used to make canned beans. But sprouting is becoming more popular, which is healthier. There hadn't been any head-to-head comparisons until now. The easiest way to compare is to just measure the quantity of polyphenol phytonutrients thought to account for some of the protective benefits against chronic disease, for example, the anthocyanin pigments that make these particular beans so pretty. As you can see, sprouted beans have more of some, but less of others. In fact, you can see that across the board with the other phenolic phytonutrients, more of some, less of others. Because the positive effects of these compounds may be related to their antioxidant capacity, you can compare the overall antioxidant power of boiled versus sprouted beans, for which boiled appeared to have a marginal edge. But ideally, we actually measure physiological effects, like what about boiled versus sprouted against cancer cells? And that's just what they did. This is the concentration of raw bean extract needed to cut the breast cancer growth rate in half in a petri dish. Boiled beans do about 40 times better, right? Same cancer growth inhibition at just a fraction of the concentration, and sprouted beans do about the same. Now, you can't even eat most beans raw, but I wanted to include them just to show you a fascinating phenomenon. No amount of raw bean extract appears able to totally stop the growth of breast cancer cells, but just a small amount of cooked or sprouted beans can. And the same thing with actually killing off cancer. No amount of raw bean extract works, but both boiled and sprouted beans can. Similar results were found for melanoma. Processing the beans, either cooking or sprouting, boosted anti-cancer activity in vitro. But against kidney cancer, raw and boiled worked, but sprouted didn't at all. The researchers were also interested in brain protection. Given that elderly persons reporting always eating legumes may be significantly less likely to experience cognitive decline, the researchers decided to compare the protective effects of boiled versus sprouted beans on astrocytes. Astrocytes are the most abundant type of cell in our brain. They are star-shaped cells that keep our brain running smoothly. Should they become damaged, though, they may play an important role in the development of neurodegenerative disorders like Lou Gehrig's disease, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's. So if we're thinking clearly, we should thank our lucky stars. To see if beans would help protect astrocytes from damage, first they had to make sure bean extracts don't cause any damage. This is the before, dripping nothing on astrocytes in a petri dish, 100% viability, and then this is after adding boiled bean extract. Didn't hurt the cells at all, and sprouted beans seemed to even help them grow a little bit. Same thing, but this time we're going to damage the astrocytes with an oxidative chemical that killed off about a quarter of the cells. But with some boiled bean extract on board, the astrocytes were protected at the 2 higher doses, but the sprouted beans didn't appear to offer significant benefit. So what's the takeaway? As far as I'm concerned, we should eat beans in whichever way will get us to eat the most of them. I do love my lentil sprouts, one of the healthiest snacks on the planet, along with kale chips. It's amazing that I can create fresh produce in about 2 to 3 days on my kitchen counter. Sprouting is like gardening on steroids. But using canned beans, I can get similar nutrition in about 2 to 3 seconds.
Treats for 2 special guest stars on Cooking with Kay for my 2 best friends, Tootie and Spike. First thing we're going to add in is 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oatmeal, and remember, don't use the instant. One cup of flour, all-purpose flour. 1 teaspoon of salt, now we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of chicken bouillon, dissolve it in half a cup of hot water, now we're going to add this in. Now guess what? It's time for 1 egg. Now let's get real with the meal and stir it up. Now that the mix is stirred, now we're going to put it on the counter and roll it out with the rolling pin. If it starts sticking to your pin, put a little flour on top. Once we have our dough rolled out, press some cookie cutters into there. We have a dog bone, a dog, and a paw. We're going to put it on a pan that has cooking spray on it. Whenever you cut out what you can, just roll it back up again. This batch made us 24 treats, but it depends on what type of cookie cutter you use and how thick your dough is. Now we're going to put these in the oven for about 20 minutes at 350, but it depends on how crunchy you want them. Are you paying attention? Here's a tip. Use an oven mitt when you're using the oven so that you don't get burnt. Treats are baking. I'm going to tell you a story about my 2 best friends. Tootie here was a birthday present for when I turned 2, and Spike here was found by my sister Jenna and my brother-in-law Matt. He was by the road in bad shape, and they patched him up and gave him to me, and he became a part of the family. In the oven, I flipped him over and let him cook for for another 10 minutes, just for good measures. I love my dog so much that I'm gonna try a piece. see how they like them. Sit, sit, sit. Up, up, up.